We welcome now Secretary of State Michael Watson. All right, Mr. Secretary, what's going on today? Unmute your mic, Mr. Secretary. Get your mic.
Is that better?
There we go. Got you. Yeah. All right, what's happening today? You don't look like you're in your office, are you?
We got a fine day. I'm in the office down on the coast today. We try and travel every election day, really to see all across the state. We've got about 15 or 16 or so team members out around the state today. We'll be in probably 50 or so counties, checking in the precincts, making sure that everything's going as planned and by the law. And I think it's important not just to talk about election integrity, but also be on the ground proving it.
Okay. And so I know we've talked about this before, but we passed a law to modernize the election system, a couple of years ago, and that included some funding, right, out to the counties for that purpose. And I'm getting lots of reports today. People are saying that the process, the experience is different. First time, for example, in some counties they voted on paper. One person said that I wanted to pass on to you that they didn't vote for some of the races and they were asked to sign an affidavit. Is that correct?
No. What you would see on these scanners, once you put your ballot in, it'll ask you if you wanted to skip those races, and you can say, cast my ballot anyway. I'm not familiar with that certain procedure you just talked about there. That's a new one for me.
Okay, let me read what they reported here, Mr. Secretary. It says ballot didn't scan until signing an affidavit saying they intentionally did not vote for some. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's a new one. As a matter of fact, this morning I was in one precinct and the gentleman had made X's through his circles instead of coloring them in, so the machine would not accept it. So they had to spoil that ballot and give him a new one to circle it in. But I've also seen where folks didn't want to vote for some folks, and then when they scanned the ballot in, it asked them if they wanted to cast it with those undervotes, and it was allowed to do so. So that's a new one for me. I'll check in on that one. You know which county, by the way, Gerard?
I just asked this individual what county, so we can check that out. So, but I just wanted to pass that on. But I've also wanted to pass on that, let's see if I can find here, a lot of people are saying that they've had a very good experience, that the poll workers are professional, everything's organized, good to go. That was certainly my experience today in Madison County. Just voted in Pontotoc, and first time for paper ballots that I remember in years. Good morning. We voted at Union Center in North Mississippi, and it went very well. They made sure that we showed our photo IDs, and we didn't see any problems or issues that concerned us. The poll workers were all very professional. So a little feedback for certainly the county and the poll watchers, the circuit clerks, your office. It's a team effort. It's a lot of people behind the scenes to pull these elections off. It's monumental.
Really is, Gerard. And a lot of folks just think they go to the polling precinct and cast their ballot and go home and it's done. Leading up to the election day, so much work goes on with our circuit clerks and our elections commissioners. God bless our poll workers who are out there making sure that this thing goes off as smoothly as possible, and our team at the Secretary of State's office. And that was one of the reasons we did the 82 county tour, sitting down with our commissioners and our circuit clerks to make sure they understood this is a team effort, and we've got to have great communication and great relationships with that. And as you mentioned, the paper ballots, I got a text from a buddy of mine, Jared, that just said, man, I'm so glad I got to vote by paper today. I really enjoyed that experience. And so a lot of folks are really glad that we're going back to paper ballots to make sure that we return the confidence in the process.
And we should point out that the optical scanners, in the case of the marked sense paper ballots, and then you hand that to, actually you don't hand it, you are once you finish voting and marking them, as you said, you go to the scanner stations, and a poll worker is watching, is observing. You then place your ballot. They don't do it for you. You place it in the scanner, and then the scanner will return a message once it is scanned telling you that it was successful. Those machines are not connected to a network. They are standalone, and the data is stored in those machines, and then the machines are picked up, and then the data is transferred for final tabulation. Did I describe the process accurately?
That's right. And one of the things that the legislature included in that funding mechanism basically were two things. When you get your new machines, number one, they need to have a paper verifiable trail. And number two, they cannot connect to the internet. So I thought that
Okay.
was two important pieces to point out to Mississippians.
Okay. All right. So overall, seems like it's been a fairly smooth day from the reports I've received. What about your team out in the field? I know one of them's my daughter over there in Lauderdale County. How's that going?
I'm sure Alex is doing a fine job out there. I'm so proud of our volunteers in the office. We do not force them to do that; they choose to do that, and I really appreciate people like Alex who care enough to go out and be the hands and feet of the office to make sure that things are going smoothly. We've heard a few reports around the state, some where precincts opened a little bit late. We've heard some precincts that ran out of ballots, which indicates high turnout, which is a great thing. The circuit clerks would then present them with more ballots to vote. We had some power outages due to inclement weather over in Washington County. We've had a few other instances come up, but again, I like to tell folks there's never a perfect election, but we do the very best we can. And when you have humans involved, sometimes things just go wrong. And I would encourage them to be patient as they go in, because many counties are switching over to these new machines with paper-based ballots. So that's a new process for them as well. But we've got a great team on the ground, and really, really proud of them today.
So something else is write-ins. What's the law in Mississippi? Because I noticed on my ballot there's a space to write-in a candidate if you don't see anybody you want to vote for that's listed. How's that work in Mississippi?
Really good question, and I actually got that today from a legislative buddy of mine, saying what exactly happens with those write-ins. So I'll give you a great example right now. There's a case in North Mississippi where one of the candidates passed away after the qualifying deadline, so that turns into a write-in campaign. So there are only specific times where write-ins actually count. You
Okay.
can write Mickey Mouse in if you want to, but it's not going to be counted unless those certain circumstances are relevant.
Gotcha. And of course, in Mississippi, these primaries today, and you specify which ballot you want. Actually, the poll worker will ask you which ballot you want. You tell them, and that's the one they hand to you. They note your the proper ballot, because in the municipal elections, those can be different within the same county and even at the same precinct. Correct?
Yeah, that's right. You're going to have some split precincts out there, and people need to be very aware of this, Gerard. As you well know, redistricting took place. So there are some new district lines out there. So that's why we encourage folks to go to My Election Day at y'allvote.ms to get your sample ballot to make sure that you're aware of and prepared to go vote. So there will be some changes today. So make sure that people are patient and asking the right questions. And you're right, the parties run the election today since it is a primary, but you will be asked which ballot you want, Republican or Democrat. And so, again, we appreciate everybody going out to vote today.
So the polls close at 7. Just a little point of clarification, Mr. Secretary. Does that mean you have to have presented your ID to a poll worker by 7 o'clock? If you're in the building and you're still in line and it's after 7, you're still allowed to vote, right?
That's exactly right. Sometimes what you're going to see is the line that's in place, if there is a line, the bailiff will go get in behind the last person at 7 o'clock. But as long as you're
Okay.
in line by 7, you will be allowed to vote.
Okay. As long as you're in line by 7, you're allowed to vote. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Anything else you need to tell us about that you've heard from across the state that causes any degree of concern for you at this point?
Not really. I'll tell you this. We've talked a lot about cybersecurity, and we've been in contact with Ohio. They actually have a statewide race today. We've talked to Kentucky and Louisiana, who both have statewide races this year. We've talked to DHS, our friends over at ITS. David Johnson and his team has been fantastic.
Yeah, they're
But
great.
thank the Lord, we've been good today, and there's no cybersecurity activity that needs to be brought to light. So I appreciate Daniel Jordan in our office and all the good work that's going on to make sure that people's information is safe and our elections go off without a hitch.
What about the sample of the voter ID that I shared with you earlier? Explain that. I shared that, by the way, your comment. I thought that'd be okay to the audience. Will you explain that, please?
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. There were some questions. I know there was some questions in Rankin County and Harrison County where there was some old information about voter ID with the previous Secretary of State's picture on it. By the way, it was a very young picture of the previous Secretary of
Yep.
State. And
Got about a minute.
people were asking if that was electioneering. And Again, that was just a mistake. We've sent out new information to all of our 82 counties, to our circuit clerks. Sometimes they have old information that they just put in those ballot bags and they just continue to recycle it. So we've sent them new forms so they can update that information and have the
Okay.
current office on there. But they are removing those if anybody has questions. And if you see more of them, please let us know.
Okay. We appreciate that. Good to talk to you, Mr. Secretary. Have a great election day, and we'll be following the results later on tonight. Thanks for all the great work you and your team do and all the folks involved in it across the state. Thank you.
Thanks, Gerard. You as well, buddy.
We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.